Hi, I'm Sean Bouchard.
And I'm Elizabeth Swenson.
And we're here with a game called Application Crunch, and we're going to show you a little bit how to play it.
The goals of Application Crunch are to apply to college, get into college, pay for college, and do well in college.
And you do this over a series of rounds with 3 or 4 players, where you start by getting actions, and then you spend actions, and then after everybody takes a turn, you move the timeline. And we're going to show you exactly what that means.
So first we're going to show the setup of the game. This is how the center of the table should look. These are the cards that every player needs access to. You're going to need some paper clips. They don't come with the game. Regular size paper clips are fine, and we'll show you what you're supposed to do with them later. When you get the box though, open it up and separate out all the decks. You're going to want your 4 activity decks, and you'll want to shuffle those individually. You'll also want to shuffle the productivity deck and the question card deck. You're going to set aside the acceptance cards. You can tell that they're the acceptance deck because they say you're accepted on the top and they look like this on the back. Don't need to shuffle these. These are fine as they are. There's also a college counselor strategy guide deck, which should be near the acceptance card deck. They look like this. They can be also sort of not shuffled. They're all the same. The most important thing though is the timeline. It's in order, so you don't have to shuffle it. And you lay it out so you can see 5 cards, starting with number 1, which is the college fair, all the way up to the technical school on top of the stack.
So you want to set up some cards in front of each player as well. And each player gets a character card that tells you what kind of a character you are. And it also gives you a special ability. So read this bottom section, and each player gets sort of a different special ability when they're playing the game. Everybody also gets a family finances card that describes a little bit about the financial background of your family. And this is going to come into play when you're applying for federal aid scholarship. It also might give you some money to start out the game with. So check the bottom of the card for that. And then every player also gets a college account. And you're going to start out your college account with whatever your initial amount of money is. For most players, it'll be 0, unless it says differently on the family finances card. You're going to take a paper clip and put it at that level to mark how much money you have in your college account. Every player should also have 2 envelopes. And there are 4 sets of envelopes of different colors. So make sure you have 2 of the same color. And then every player is also going to start the game with an academics card. So draw an academics card from the activity deck and put a paper clip at the bottom level to show that you're just starting out.
So after you have the center of the table set up and each player has their starting cards, one player begins by getting actions, which is the first step. You get actions by drawing a productivity card. And productivity cards say what kind of week you're having and how many actions you get to take this turn. In this case, I get to take 5 actions. The card also shows how you can spend your actions on the bottom.
So now that you have some actions, you can spend them. And there are several things you can spend them on, starting with drawing a new card. So you can spend 1 action to take a new activity card out of any of the 4 categories. And when you get a new card, you're going to take a paper clip and put it on the bottom level. And then you're going to take that card and put it in front of you. You can have up to 5 activity cards at a time. You can also spend actions to level up these cards. So the number of actions that you need is actually indicated on the card. And to level it up, you're going to move the paperclip from the bottom level up to the next level. This one, it takes 1 action. This other card, you do the same thing. You move the paperclip up, but it says it costs 3 actions. You can also spend an action to take any card that you have and put it in one of your envelopes, like that. You can also spend an action to take one of your envelopes and put it in front of one of the deadlines, like that. And finally, you can spend an action to draw a question card and ask the question to the group.
So after every player's had their turn, it's time to move the timeline. This happens at the end of every round. So you look down at the timeline and pay attention to the one at the very end. This is the card that's due this round. You notice that 2 players apply to it in the course of their turns. So to figure out who gets in this time, you flip over the card. That's called evaluating it. On the back of the card, it has a reminder of the requirements. In this case, just an application envelope. So both these players meet the requirements. It also says at the top that everyone who meets the requirements gets in. The center tells you a little bit more about evaluating. In this case, it says that every player who submitted an envelope gets to level up any one of their cards once. So both these players would get to act on that right now. Now this card is done. It's past its due date, so it falls out of play. The players who submitted to that deadline get their envelopes back, and then we move the timeline. We do that by just making sure that the next card in the timeline is revealed. You always see 5 cards until they all run out. And again, this moves at the end of every round. So after another round of play, we then evaluate this card, bring it out, and move the timeline again.
Alright, so let's talk about how to apply to different deadlines. The first thing you want to do is look at the cards that you've got. And I've got a bunch of cards in front of me and I've leveled some of them up. The stars over on the right hand side of the card indicate how valuable this activity looks to a school admissions board or a scholarship organization. So you can see this starts at the bottom level at 3 stars, and then it goes to 4 stars, 5 stars, 6 stars. And I've leveled it up to the second level, so this card is worth 4 stars to me. And specifically it's 4 stars in service, because that's what it says at the top. The other thing you want to look at on the cards are these symbols over on the left-hand side. These represent a variety of different things that you get out of the activities. So, for example, this symbol is for a personal story, and this symbol is for a letter of recommendation. Now you only get these when you level up to the level where they are or higher. So on this card, for example, because I've leveled up to the second level, I get the personal story, but I don't get the letter of recommendation. On the other hand, I have this other card. In this card I've leveled it up to the level that says 4 stars in fine arts. And for this I get the award that's pictured here, and I also get the personal story because that's below where I am. So I'm going to take both of these cards and I'm going to put them in an envelope. And I spend actions to do that. And then I'm going to look over at the timeline at the deadlines that I can apply to. And I've sort of prepared this for the art school deadline. So to apply to art school, I'm going to just put the envelope down right here in front of that deadline. You want to look at all of the deadlines that are available to you and choose which ones you're going to apply to, because you don't have enough time to level up enough cards to apply to everything. So my advice would be to apply to pick sort of a couple schools that seem to fit you and what you want to do. For example, if I want to be an artist, then maybe I'll apply to art school. And pick a school that you really want to go to, maybe the selective school or the prestigious school, and also another school that'll be a backup. And then, of course, you're also going to want to pick some scholarships that fit with the kinds of activities that you're doing so that you can get some money to pay for college.
So after you apply to college, your next goal is to get into a college. So right now, we're looking at the timeline a little later in the game and looking specifically at the small liberal arts college. To know if you got into a school, you have to evaluate a deadline when it's due, which is by turning it over. You then want to look at the cards in your envelope. Now at this point, there might be more than one person who applied to a deadline, but I'm just going to focus on one application this time around. So you can have up to 4 cards in an application envelope, and their various bonus points and stars are going to contribute to whether or not you get into a school. The first thing you do is look at the requirements. You have to meet the requirements to be considered at all. So in this case, the requirements are a letter of rec, bonus symbol, and 4 stars in academics. So I look at the cards that I submitted, and here's an academics card, and it has 7 stars. So I more than meet that requirement. And I also have a physics card with a letter of recommendation on it. So okay, I meet the requirements and get to sort of continue to evaluate this card. Now this card admits 2. So if more than 2 people meet the requirements, then we sort of have to figure out who gets in. And that's done with the middle section. The middle section will give you a way to score applications, and the first thing that most of these say is to count up the number of stars on all cards. The way you do that is look at the level on the cards you submitted, where the paper clips are, and add up those numbers. So on this extracurricular card, I got up to 6 stars. So I'd take 6, I'd add it to the 7 stars in academics, the 4 stars in service, and the 3 stars in yearbook. And I'd add those all together. Then it gives extra bonus points for bonus symbols usually, or certain types of cards that are valuable to the specific school. So the small liberal arts college gives you bonus points if you turn in a liberal arts card in your application, like yearbook. You can tell if the liberal arts card up in this corner again. It's got a little book and says liberal arts. It also gives me 3 extra points if I have any personal stories, even though it wasn't a requirement. And I've got one on this service card here, so I'd get to add 3 to that number, and so on. Once you get the total number for your application, you compare it to other applications who apply to small liberal arts college in this case, and the people with the highest scores get in. If there's ever a tie, both applicants get in, and same with scholarships, both people would get the award money. So after this has been evaluated, this falls off like it normally does in the timeline, and we move the timeline. But I get my envelope back, yay. And I also have all these cards. Now, keep the paper clips on these cards. You can't use them again. They're going to go aside into a discard pile, which we call a portfolio. And that's sort of super important for later in the game. They contribute to your overall score, and sort of all the things you've ever done are are really important later in the game. You also get an acceptance card. And so look in the acceptance card deck, and these are titled by school. And right here, I've got a small liberal arts acceptance card. The acceptance card gives you some details about the school. It tells you how much it's going to cost, and also what kind of badges I can get at the end of the game. We're going to talk about tuition and cost and money and badges a little later.
Okay, so once you've gotten into a school, the next thing you need to do is be able to pay for it. And you're going to look on your acceptance card and see that there's tuition, but there are also supplies and living expenses or additional costs of going to college. And so there's a total down at the bottom. And the tuition matches the number that's at the top of the front of the deadline card. It says 7. And that's the same as the tuition here. But once you get the acceptance card, you add in the additional costs, and you get the total. And so the total, 12, is what I have to pay to go to this school. Now I don't have to pay that right now because I don't have to pay that until I actually attend the school at the end of the game. But by the end of the game, I need to have at least 12 in my college account. There's 2 ways to do that. One is with scholarships, and so here's an example of a scholarship. The scholarship in the top right-hand corner, just like the tuition for schools, shows how much the scholarship awards. So the scholarship awards 3. So if I win this scholarship, then I get to add 3 to my college account. And I would do that by taking my college account card and moving the paperclip 3 down. So the other way to get money for college is through working, and there's a whole deck of work cards that have money symbols on them. So the money symbols work a little bit differently than the other symbols. Whenever you level up this card, and the level that you're going to has a money symbol on it, you immediately add that to your college account. So I just leveled up to a level that had a money symbol. I add 1 to my college account. Some of the work cards have more than 1 money symbol on the level. So if this has 2 money symbols, that means that I get, when I level up to there, I get to add 2 to my college account.
So after you apply to college and get into college and have enough to pay for college, the next goal you have is to do well in college. This is sort of how you win the game. So when the timeline runs out, when the last card, community college, gets evaluated, sort of the end of the game where every player has to choose which college they're going to go to, if you have a choice. If you have more than 1 acceptance card, now is the time to decide which school to go to. I'm going to choose to go to the small liberal arts college. On the back, it has a list of badges. This sort of determines how well prepared you are to go to this college. Of course, you have to be able to afford it. So assuming I have 14 money in my college account, I can go here. Great. Then I look at my discard pile. All the classes I've ever taken, any cards that are left over in my hand at the end of the game, as well as any cards that I stuck in envelopes. I look at those to see if I meet these badges. The badges for each school are a little different, so you might want to choose your school based on the badges that you qualify for. In this case, the top badge is a life less ordinary. I have to have 5 extracurricular cards. So I look at this stack. Let's see, I've got 1, 2, oh, I do have 5. Awesome. So I've got 5 extracurricular cards in the stack, which means I would get 5 points for that. I don't have to get these in order, but I'm trying to get as many as I can. They might have different sorts of requirements, different kinds of cards. If it's something like 3 letters of recommendation, I look at all these cards, and they don't have to be the same kind, but as long as I've gotten a letter of recommendation on the card, or on 3 different cards, I would get that level as well. Sometimes they have multiple requirements, like 14 stars in a liberal arts card and 1 award. Then I'd have to meet all of those things to get that 20 points. The player who gets the most points and badges at the end wins the game. So those are the basics of Application Crunch. If you have any questions about how the setup, what it looks like, it's on the Quick Start Guide, as well as the basic procedures and the goals.
And if you have any more questions about rules that were covered in this video, check out the instruction booklet. You can find more information about this game and other games that we're doing at collegeologygames.com. Thanks for watching.